I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Quick. What happens if you say, I don't know? If you just thought you get slimed, congratulations. You grew up in the 80s watching You Can't Do That on television. This Ottawa-made kids show did something no one had done before. It treated kids like they were smarter than adults, funnier than adults, and absolutely deserving of dumping green slime on grown-ups. It was subversive, gross, hilarious, and completely revolutionary. And here's the crazy part. This low-budget Canadian show, filmed in a local TV station, played a huge role in shaping Nickelodeon's identity. Every time you've seen someone get slimed on TV in the last 40 years, that started here, in Ottawa, in 1979. Today, we're telling the story of the show that proved kids' TV didn't have to be nice and changed television forever. It premiered in 1979 on CJOH-TV in Ottawa. It started as a local kids' sketch comedy show. Think Saturday Night Live, but for children, with a fraction of the budget. The format was simple. A cast of kids and a few adults performing comedy sketches. But the content was anything but typical kids' fare. The show made fun of parents, teachers, and authority figures. It featured gross-out humor, boogers, barfing, disgusting food. And it had two iconic running gags that would define the show forever. Say, I don't know. Splat. Green slime dumped on your head. Say water, splash. Bucket of water from above. The kids were the stars, the adults were the idiots. And it was absolutely hilarious. Within 2 years, Nickelodeon picked up the show for American distribution. Suddenly, this little Ottawa production was airing across North America. At its peak, millions of kids were watching. And Nickelodeon was so obsessed with the slime concept that it became their brand identity. The orange blimp, the slime, all because of this Canadian show. This show ran until 1990, launched careers, and created a comedy legacy that influenced everything from All That to Keenan and Kel to modern YouTube content. This show was created by Roger Price and Geoffrey Darby at CJOH-TV in Ottawa. They wanted to make a sketch comedy show for kids, not just about kids. The concept was radical for 1979. Create comedy that reflected what kids actually found funny, not what adults thought they should find funny. The writers drew heavily from kids' perspectives and frustrations, giving them permission to be gross, irreverent, and smart. The first episodes were rough, low budget, simple sets, local Ottawa kids as the cast. But something clicked. The humor was sharp, the kids were talented, and the sketches were genuinely funny. Then came the slime. The slime gag evolved organically during early episodes. Roger Price is often credited with developing it as a running punishment bit. During a sketch where a kid said, I don't know, green slime was dumped on them. The mixture was a thick green concoction made from household ingredients. It looked disgusting. The kids hated it, and viewers loved it, so they made it a rule. Say, I don't know, and you get slimed. The water dump came shortly after. Say water, and you get drenched. These weren't just gags. They became part of the show's DNA. Kids watched specifically hoping to see someone get slimed. In 1981, Nickelodeon, which had launched just a year earlier and was desperately searching for content, discovered the show. They started airing it in the US, and it became one of their first hits. American kids went crazy for it, and Nickelodeon executives realized they'd found their brand identity. Kids getting messy, being gross, challenging authority. They built an entire network around the aesthetic this Canadian show had created. Let's talk about what made You Can't Do That on television so memorable. The sketches. Kids played parents, adults played kids. These sketches flipped power dynamics and let kids act out their frustrations with how adults treated them. It was cathartic and funny. The firing squad. Kids would face a mock firing squad for minor infractions. Dark humor for a kids' show, but it worked because it was so absurd and exaggerated. The dungeon. A medieval dungeon where kids faced cartoonish punishments. Again, darker than typical kids' fare, but that edge made it exciting. The locker jokes. Kids would pop out of school lockers to deliver one-liners and observations. Quick, punchy, and often surprisingly clever. The cast rotated over the years, but a few standouts became legends. Christine Moose McGlade, the face of the show for many years. She was smart, funny, and took more slime hits than anyone. Moose became an icon of 80s kids TV. Lisa Ruddy, another long-running cast member who became beloved by fans. Alanis Morissette, yes, that Alanis Morissette. She was a cast member in 1986, years before You Oughta Know made her a global star. She got slimed. She did sketches. It's a wild piece of music history. Les Lai, the adult actor who played virtually every adult male character. Barth, the firing squad commander, the dungeon master, abusive dads, terrible teachers. He was a chameleon and absolutely committed to the bit. The cast was more diverse than many shows of its era. The humor was sharp, and the show never talked down to its audience. Kids felt respected, which was rare in children's programming. So what made You Can't Do That on television work when so many kids' shows fail? First, it respected kids' intelligence. The humor was sophisticated. The sketches had social commentary. The show assumed kids could understand satire, parody, and subversive humor. And kids responded because they were hungry for content that didn't treat them like babies. Second, it was genuinely subversive. Parents were portrayed as idiots. Teachers were incompetent. Authority figures were mocked. For kids growing up in the 1980s, this was revolutionary. TV was finally on their side. Third, the gross-out factor. Kids love gross stuff. Slime, water dumps, burgers made of rats. It was disgusting and hilarious. And importantly, it gave kids something their parents didn't want them to watch. That forbidden quality made it even more appealing. Fourth, it looked low budget and DIY. This wasn't a slick Hollywood production. It looked like something kids could imagine making themselves. That accessibility was part of the charm. It said, you could do this too. Fifth, the slime became iconic. The green slime transcended the show and became a cultural phenomenon. Kids wanted to be slimed. They talked about it at school. They tried to recreate it at home. Nickelodeon turned it into their brand identity, creating slime-based game shows and events. Sixth, it was Canadian without being about Canada. Unlike some Canadian shows that wore their Canadianness on their sleeve, YCDTOTV was just a good show that happened to be made in Canada. That universality helped it succeed in the US market. Let's talk about how this Canadian show invented Nickelodeon's identity. When Nickelodeon launched in 1979, it was struggling. Cable TV was new and kids' networks were unproven. They needed content, cheap, ideally, and they needed to figure out what made them different from Saturday morning cartoons. You Can't Do That on television gave them the answer. The show was already made, so it was cheap to license. It was funny and different from anything else on TV. And that slime, Nickelodeon executives realized the slime was pure branding gold. They started promoting the show heavily. They adopted green slime as their network mascot. They created new shows built around slime: Double Dare, Get the Picture, Wild and Crazy Kids. They started sliming celebrities at the Kids' Choice Awards. They built an entire network identity around a concept that this Ottawa show had invented. And here's the thing: Nickelodeon never really hid this. They acknowledged you can't do that on television as the source. But over time, as the original show ended and new slime-based programming took over, people forgot where it started. Today, if you ask someone about green slime, they'll say Nickelodeon. Very few remember it was a Canadian show from Ottawa that invented the whole thing. The show ended production in 1990, after 11 years. Why? The cast aged out. The kids who'd made the show were now adults. The format felt dated as TV evolved. And frankly, Nickelodeon had taken the slime concept and run with it, creating new shows that felt fresher. The final episodes aired without fanfare. The show just stopped. For years, it lived on only in memories and occasional reruns. But then the internet happened. Clips and episodes resurfaced online. A new generation discovered this weird, subversive Canadian show from the 80s. And the reaction has been fascinating. Millennials who grew up with it share it with their kids, who are baffled that something so low-budget and chaotic was ever on TV. Gen Z discovers it and can't believe how edgy it was for children's programming. The legacy is undeniable. Every kids' comedy show that features gross-out humor, every slime in every show that empowers kids to mock adults. They all owe a debt to You Can't Do That on television. Shows like All That, The Amanda Show, iCarly, even modern YouTube content. They're all descendants of what this Ottawa show started in 1979, and it launched the early career of Alanis Morissette, who would go on to become a global music icon. If you watched You Can't Do That on television growing up, drop a comment. What's your favorite sketch? Barth's Burgers? The Firing Squad? And did you ever try to make slime at home? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Canadian TV nostalgia. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.